Good day, everybody. This is Chris back again with the Ancient Scholar, and I want to take a look at another 12-lead ECG. All right, so here we go. So let's go ahead and just remember the ISAL, I see all leads. And we'll start with the inferior wall, leads 2, 3, and AVF. And it should become rather apparent. If you look in lead 2 there's my J point should return to baseline. It does not, so it's elevated above the baseline. Okay. All right, so I have ST elevation in lead 2. Definitely greater than 2 millimeters there, about 2.5 millimeters. Move down to lead 3, and you can see the same thing. The J point does not return to baseline. It is elevated above, so I have ST segment elevation in lead 3, and then AVF. Again, if you look at AVF, you have this ST elevation as well. So if our patient has signs and symptoms consistent with acute coronary syndrome, and this is what we were to see on our 12 lead, we would be reasonably sure this definitely points toward the hypothesis of an inferior wall ST segment elevation, myocardial infarction, or inferior wall STEMI. So let's now go ahead and take a look at our other leads. So that's the inferior, right? So we've done our inferior, and we definitely know that there's a problem in the inferior wall. Let's now move on to V1 and V2, and that will be the septal wall. V1 and V2, the septal wall. All right, so we look here. V1 looks good. You see how my J point comes back to baseline. V2, the same thing. My J point comes back to baseline. V3, same thing. J point, well, we'll go to V3 here in a minute. But V1 and V2, hopefully you guys are good with that. The J point returns to baseline, so there's nothing remarkable going on in the septal wall. So let's now move on to leads V3 and V4. This is looking at the anterior wall of the left ventricle. Okay, so the septal and anterior leads, of course, are all the left anterior descending artery, branch of the left coronary artery. All right, again, you can see that I have a nice J point there. It looks good. I have good return to baseline. And then V4. Again, my J point returns to baseline, so we're good in V4 as well. Okay, so the LAD looks good, and then let's move on to the circumflex, which looks at the lateral wall of the left ventricle. V5, V6, so that's I see all leads. 1 here, and then AVL here, and we're not doing a whole lot with AVR at this point in time. Okay, so lateral wall, the circumflex branch of the left coronary artery. Got your P, Q, R, S, T, and you see that you have that nice return to baseline. Have a nice return to baseline in V6 as well. If we go up to lead 1 here, okay, pretty much have a nice return to baseline there. And then I go to AVL right here. And again, you can see that it does eventually, you see I can make kind of a J here, and it does eventually return to baseline, maybe slightly elevated, but not greater than 1 millimeter, so it's not diagnostic kind of elevation. So the major problem with this particular 12 lead is here in the inferior wall in leads 2, 3, and AVF. So we call this an inferior wall STEMI, and of course that involves the right coronary artery. We would expect to have problems with potentially the SA node, the right atrium, the right ventricle, and the inferior part of the left ventricle, maybe taking a hit there as well. Okay, well, we'll call it good for that one.